I've been having way too much fun with this bow. I just got this. This is a second-hand KTB, I believe. I bought it off someone from the Aitan group back in January, actually. Paid 200 US for it, plus a bit more for postage. It arrived on the world's slowest ship, and it actually got to me last week. I've been having fun with it ever since. Figured, you know what, since I'm collecting Asiatic bows, I've got a Mongolian bow, I've got a Ming bow, I've got an Assyrian bow coming in, I've got a Qing Dynasty bow. A Korean bow seems to make sense. I guess the next on my shopping list would be a Yumi, but that's neither here nor there. But this is something which I really enjoyed using. I've actually been reading some books on traditional Korean archery. Though I've been shooting it regular Asiatic style, I guess. So it's been a lot of fun though. Like this particular bow is very beautiful. It's a very modified or personalized version. The previous owner did a lot of aesthetic work with it. So it's not a stock standard KTB, but it's been a lot of fun using it. Now, strange flex, I know, but it got me thinking about a question which a lot of people have, a problem you might say. And that is, how do you justify spending money on additional archery equipment? This is a problem which a lot of people have, either by themselves or with their significant others. And look, archery equipment isn't cheap. You can start with cheap bows, of course. But ultimately, if you're getting serious gear, or you're competing, or you're buying replacement parts or new arrows, you can rack up a few $100s quite easily. So what's the process? Like, how do I justify buying things? And how do people make the most out of what they get? Now, this, of course, is a very difficult question to answer because ultimately, this is kind of metaphysical. You're talking about things like materialism, superficiality, and all these other physical, materialistic matters. But I guess what it comes down to is, look, you spend money on what you enjoy doing. If it's worthwhile to do, then it's worthwhile to spend money on. I think the antithesis of this is when you buy things you don't use. And a lot of us, every one of us, will have this challenge. You know, we think we want this thing, we impulsively buy it, we might use it once or twice, and we don't use it ever again. I think that's where we need to draw the line between what we see as necessary and what we see as unnecessary, needs and wants. We want a bow, we buy a cheap compound bow or a cheap recurve bow, and we never use it again because there's no desire, no hunger to use it. It's there, we're satisfied. To that extent, if you're gonna spend money on archery to try it, might as well go to a club and spend $20 on a come and try session instead of spending $200 on a bow which you never use. So that's where I think you need to realize that you don't really need archery, you just want to try it, fair enough. But there are also a lot of people who really deserve to get equipment, who really should get it because they can advance or they can enjoy the sport more. And by being very stingy or being a miser with money and not spending money on bow equipment or archery gear, I think people really do miss out on the potential fun, enjoyment, satisfaction, fulfillment that a lot of us have when doing archery. And I think this is the sort of thing which, if you choose to buy because you enjoy it and you know you will do it, then don't spend expense for it because you're going to live the rest of your life regretting not having a bow. Whereas if you know your heart's into it, then this shouldn't be an inhibition. And unfortunately, often it's the people who want it, deserve it, should have it, who don't get it. And the people who don't really need it do. Now, all the philosophy aside, what are some practical things which can help justify us a bit better, if not to our partners, then to ourselves? I think for me, when I decide to get new equipment, it's normally following some kind of milestone or some kind of progression point. I'm not the sort of person who buys things willy-nilly and just buy new risers or compound bows just for the sake of it. I am actually quite a minimalistic person. I don't get a lot of extra things. I try to make what I have stretch out as much as possible. And to be fair, I do get free stuff, so I'm not exactly in a position to say, hey, I don't buy anything. But what I do have, I use. I make sure I use and I maximize their usage, whether it's a new bow, a new set of arrows, or so on. So for me, if I want to get a new set of arrows, for example, I'm currently using Easton Carbon 1s, which are a low tier arrow. I do have Easton X10s, which are 10 times the price, which are much better competitive arrows. My problem, and the reason why I downgraded from the X10s, is because I wasn't maximizing the usage. I was actually losing and breaking these arrows in practice for no reason, and these are very expensive to replace. So I thought, you know what, when I'm in my downtime, when I'm in my off season and when I'm practicing or otherwise when I'm not actually in a competition condition, then I don't deserve to use the X10s. And I really don't need to. It's basically an ongoing cost. As I'm rebuilding my form, that's when I'll go to the cheaper arrows, use that until my form looks and feels good. And when I can justify that my form has recovered, typically through a score. Now, obviously, the carbon ones won't necessarily score as consistently as the X10s. Arrows do make a huge difference here, especially at long distance. But when I feel like I deserve it, then I'll go back and buy more X10s. And that's kind of my justification, is when I get back into things, I build momentum, I build traction, then that's my opportunity to get new things. And the same with most other things I shoot, whether it's traditional Western or traditional Asiatic. If it's something which I'll get for fun, then I'll use the same arrows for all my bows. You might notice my arrows are too long or my draw length is too short. I'm using the same set of arrows for most of the bows because they just happen to match the 40 or 45 pound draw weight range, which most of my bows come in. But when I feel like I am seriously going to develop and seriously going to grow or take things seriously, and I can prove it by learning new technique, by spending a certain number of hours practicing, then once I get past that milestone or that threshold, then I'll say to myself, okay, you've proven that you're willing to put in X amount of hours with this bow. Maybe you should get a set of arrows for this bow. And maybe I will. And I struggle with spending money. I struggle with buying things because, again, I live a lifestyle that's quite minimalistic. Part of it is my upbringing and my family background. But when I do want to open my purse strings or loosen my purse strings and actually splurge or get something, it's something which I find myself at ease. I think a lot of us, including myself, will recognize that there are things which I don't need to buy. If I buy it, I might feel guilty about it. No, too bad. But if it's something which I really deserve and it'll make my archery experience more worthwhile, then that's my justification. So that's kind of my thought process when buying new things. If I dedicate myself enough and reach a personal milestone, then I'll buy a new sight or a new set of limbs or new arrows. If I do a competition and I do mine really well and I beat a personal best or meet a personal milestone again, then I'll justify buying a new quiver or a new chest guard. If I find myself enjoying a new style of archery enough, then I might invest in a better bow. For me, this is a $200 second-hand purchase, very much worth it. I've only had it for like 3 days, but I love it. It's been a great bow to buy. I've made the most of my Ishvan Tough Mongolian bow. So when the opportunity came to buy the Mariner Ming Moon 4, that was quite an expensive bow, like 700, 800 US. I've barely used it, okay? So that's kind of where I might have gone too far in the expenditure range. But at the same time, it's the sort of thing where I can work towards it. It is a personal goal. It is there. I don't treat it as a throwaway toy. I'm not flexing my buying all these expensive handmade bows. It's something which I do want to learn. I do want to take up Chinese archery and experiment with it. And that to me is justifiable. And I haven't bought arrows for it yet. But if I spend enough time practicing with that bow, building up my strength and conditioning, then I think I would be justified in spending that money on new arrows just for the bow, the right length, and that way I can practice it properly. So that's my thoughts, my ramblings. I know a lot of us struggle with buying new gear, and of course, don't spend beyond your means. Be reasonable, be sustainable. You know your incomes and your budget more than anyone else does. So archery is going to be there no matter what you do. Whether you choose to spend money on it now or spend money later, the most important thing is that you do it if it's fulfilling. You take your gear out there, no matter what style you shoot, you enjoy yourself. So those are my thoughts and my advice. What do you think? How do you justify spending money on archery equipment? Post your thoughts below. This is New Sensei. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.